Good morning. Welcome to the NFL First Look Show presented by No House Advantage. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be talking a little NFL First Look on a Tuesday morning. First off, hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell as we get going. Goes a long way for us here at the channel. Allows for us to do some great content like, I don't know, I get to hang out with my buddy Ben Rasa here in the morning. Go follow him at JazzRaz DFS. Go to the video description box below. You can go find all of those good things. Generally, we're talking a little golf in the mornings, but hasn't been that way for a while. Excited to be talking the pigskin with you, my dude.
It's been a little bit. I know everybody. Laffy, where's Laffy? Laffy's gone. He's missing.
Forever.
He got fired. No, just kidding. He's sick, and we haven't seen him. He'll be back in a hot second. Not to worry. Did a little NFL action from yesterday. You hopped in with me here. We appreciate that. Still going to have plenty of room for, I'm not sure we're going to get into like the zoo animal takes and whatnot. Some of the crazy things we were talking about giraffes a couple weeks ago. We'll see what we can do. Talk a little week 5, get into the slate. Week 6 buys. That's my first takeaway. Buys are here.
Oh, I like that. No Laffy, I'm out. Bye, Travis. Appreciate you stopping by, though. Hit that like button.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave. It's just
Ben looks distraught. That's what Larry C said. Yeah,
I am
sorry.
Distraught.
You're with me.
I am distraught, not because of this.
Just I'm distraught too. So
getting stuff in order. Anytime there's soccer on a Tuesday, I'm distraught. It's a lot to get to.
Well, there's a lot of things that need to get done. Yesterday, I was winning $270,000 at halftime and had to sit with that in the old account during what?
Should have cashed out. Fish move.
It's pretty tough to cash out when
Wow.
you're full fading Travis Kelce and
Gotta cash
Devontae
that
Adams
out.
and Jacobs are smashing that second half, man.
It was a bad game overall. How was your week 5 it feels like it was months ago.
Yeah.
How was your Sunday? It was a weird slate. Obviously, Gabe Davis scored 0.1 seconds into the slate, and it kind of was just like, okay, if you have him, you're in a situation that's good. If you don't, better luck next time.
Pretty much. You either had the Allen Gabe Davis skinny or you didn't. And you either won money or you didn't. And when you get that popular quarterback and oh boy, Kansas City Buffalo, let's get to that week 6. That's going to be a lot of fun. You got to hit the nuts with those two because there were really no other. I mean, the running back position, it was impossible to fail. Like every single running back who was popular smashed. Wide receiver, if you didn't get to like Justin Jefferson off of Cooper Kupp as like a pivot, there weren't a ton of absolute smashes outside of Gabe Davis. And the tight end position was just meh, just like you expected it to be. But we get both of those lovely individuals back here for week 6. Yeah, it's week 5 was whatever. I'm glad that it's over with because, you know, you go from smashing the early games and then the afternoon was just a pure disaster with Jeff Wilson for me and Cowboys D.
Yeah, the Cowboys D, the chalk D got there. It was fine for me. I Carson Wentz was on the cusp of really doing some damage. The problem was Dynamic Brown over McLaurin still can't get fully involved in that offense, and I don't really understand that. I just can't get that right. So overall, it wasn't the worst. It certainly wasn't the best. I like when we get buys though. Like I'm very excited to talk about week 6. 4 less teams. It's a little easier to navigate. We still have plenty of options at every position. Matt Rule got fired. That should have happened. Hackett should also be fired. He will in some point. Yeah, that's all I got. You got anything else?
Well, I guess we're just gonna skip the draft talk. I was thinking we were gonna like shoot the shit for 15 minutes about
what
nothingness.
did I tell you? I told you in the DMs. Keeping it lean.
Keeping it lean. All right. You just want to get to business.
No. If you got stories, if you've got egregious takes, here we go. Now we're getting serious. Dan Campbell should be fired. That's a hot take from chat. I don't think it's that crazy that the Lions are not going anywhere. I know their offense at times have looked brilliant. They didn't look brilliant against New England. Damian Harris getting hurt. That was unfortunate for me. I had some Stevenson, but I also had some Harris, and he would have run wild on that defense.
Yeah, 25 carries for 161 for Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be a big talking point for this week. We got a lot of cheap running backs. Eno Benjamin season. Welcome. That's going to be a lot of fun to go over. We know how that goes. That's surely going to go well, but
yeah, Benjamin fighting Pride of Arizona State. CMC possibly to the Bills is wild. That would be actually insane.
I saw the rumors on that. I didn't think there was anything I didn't think there was any substance to it. I thought it was more of just like a talking head situation.
Oh yeah, we could get to that and then we can go on if you want.
Okay.
I know what's going on clearly and I get it. Tua horrible. I mean, these calls though, they're gonna have to make roughing the passer reviewable. That's the simple solution because you can't have plays like we saw with Atlanta, which was, I mean, there's nothing to really say there. Even the one last night, that was pretty bad. Clearly not roughing the passer. It's rough. Teddy Bridgewater was held out with a concussion, even though he didn't have one. I don't know what to really do there. The league is in a weird spot right now.
I think there's an easy solution, though. They already go to New York for different things to try to expedite rulings to make things work. Why is this not a committee decision as it is? Why are we giving one person who, again, if you're one human, you're going to have error, things are going to happen in the normal course of a football game that one person is going to make a mistake on. But with these massive important calls, especially when there's a change of possession, when there's an obvious opportunity for a team to have a massive swing, we have to have groupthink. Like it shouldn't be that difficult. You should be able to call in, have a group of like 3 to 5 experts in New York, and they should be the ones who make the decision based on the call. If there's any kind of a question, especially when it's something like yesterday, if the Chiefs end up losing that game, I cannot imagine turning on ESPN at any point in time today.
I mean, the Falcons, not that they were automatically going to win, but they were taken away from a chance to win that game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bad. The problem with that, these games are long enough. Like I agree with you though. You need something that's gonna give some cover to refs that are gonna make some bad mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now they do. What are they gonna do? They're obviously not able in lightning speed to articulate this stuff, and it's just not working because these aren't penalties. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself also, and this is something I try to do where we try not to, I mean, you should have automatically launched that ref into the sun after that roughing the passer call, but in either situation, actually, but we have to quit assuming that us on the field, when we're told to look for a certain thing, like the entire offseason, protect the quarterback, make sure they don't have your entire body weight coming down on the player. Well, if you're seeing these things from a certain angle, there's a bunch of 320-pound men in the way when you're at ground level. So it's hard to say that I wouldn't make a lot of the same mistakes. I'm sure that I would, but that's where we have a million cameras. We have 5 people that you could have in a booth. I mean, like we have like a college football committee. Why don't we have a NFL rules committee of some kind where the same group of people make the same decision so that there's at least some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's like synchronicity, something like that. Like we want it in sync. I just made up a word.
Okay. Yeah.
Synchronicity. You don't know what to do with that.
No, that threw me for a loop. It's just clear, they're waiting for a disaster because all it's going to take is one playoff game to have one of these. And now, at the end of the day, let's all be honest. They could do this in every game. No one cares. Everyone still watches. No one's actually going to turn off the TV because of this. People just complain. If anything, it probably helps them, disturbing as it is, because it's just the talk of everything. But I would like to see it better. Those weren't even close, particularly the Brady Jarrett one. Grady Jarrett. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm not going to go on any crazy rants. I'm going to be very docile.
Well, I enjoy Ben Rasa rants. Generally, though, it's about like the ocean floor as opposed to going into space and trying to figuring that shit out.
That's right. That's normally where it spurns on, and we'll see if that comes up. And if I have to give takes about the deep sea, I will if I have to.
I think we'll be okay. We've got an hour here to cover all the ins and outs of week 6, get you guys jump started, get it rocking with the help of No House Advantage, our friends over there. Great sponsors, excited to be talking a little football on a Tuesday morning. Getting my process started a little bit earlier than normal. Generally, I am just in the MLB lab grinding it out every single day. With the playoffs, it's nice to be here, filling in for Laffy. Hope he's feeling a little bit better. But you started with it. I'll finish with it. Bye week teams. We got the Lions, yay, with their 0 points, and give Amon-Ra St. Brown another week to be able to recoup. We've got the Titans, the Raiders, and the Texans. Those are your first 4 bye week teams. What happens? Well, we lose a game when it comes to the main slate. We have 11 games. You're still going to get your Sunday night football. You're still going to get your Monday night football, Thursday night. But now with four groupings out, we've only got 11 games on the main slate. Does that kind of change your process, knowing that ownership is going to be even more consolidated on some of the top plays, Ben?
So I'm not going to say it changes because this isn't like, okay, it's Thanksgiving. There's 4 games, and it really changes what you can do. You're playing your defense against play. Like, a lot of things come into play. I think it's more just at every price point, there's maybe 1 or 2 less pivots. There's maybe 1 or 2 playable spots at a given price point. So it doesn't change what I'm going to do. It doesn't change how I build. It's just a little more selective in some of these spots. And I like that. Sometimes it gets overwhelmed. Like you get, like 14, that's a lot of 28 teams to go through. It's just a lot to really break down.
Yeah. So, I mean, the bye weeks are a big part of the conversation piece, but I think an even bigger part of this slate is going to be late swap. I think more than any other slate through the course of the first 5 weeks, now going into the 6th week, we get Carolina and the Rams. Rams have a 26 implied total opening there, just 41 points. But Carolina, maybe the offense looks a little bit more competent without Matt Rule up there trying to ruin things for Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. It's not going to be fun having probably PJ Walker playing quarterback, but such is life. You get Arizona and Seattle in that afternoon kickoff, 51 implied total at open, and Buffalo, Kansas City, 53.5 total we're looking at, or 54 total, excuse me, at some different books. I mean, we're talking about the biggest offensive showcases all showing up in the afternoon wave. I bet they end up quite popular. Your Josh Allen's, your Patrick Mahomes, and all of those stacks. There are viable pivots in that afternoon session, but what do you think about those 3 late games after 8 games that don't look all that appealing to me in the early window?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I think we've been all guilty of this. If screenshot those winnings, but I wouldn't go shopping after the 1 o'clock window. Like, there's going to be a lot of late game hammers, as they say. These are the highest total games on the slate, shootout potential, stacks. Now, with the late swap conversation, it's going to be, certainly you can juggle some things around, and depending on what you're in, the concept with late swap, of course, is I think it's more apt in like head-to-heads or double ups or something where realistically that you're boxed out and it's like, okay, I have to roll the dice. I'm going to switch to a less optimal player with more variance to just try to pass people. In tournaments, unless there's an injury or there's news I'm waiting on, I don't really look to shake some things up unless there's a situation that calls for it.
Larry C. Eric, the interesting part, you won't know who to pivot to at QB in the late game. You could kind of tell last week with Hurts, this week toss up. That is the furthest thing from true.
I kind of agree with that.
I don't. So basically you add up the QB ownership from the early games. I do this every single week. It's a part of my process. You download the CSV at DraftKings.com. You add up the ownership of all the QBs. It takes you 1 minute. And then you can absolutely use stochastic ownership projections to help you figure out where certain quarterbacks are going to go. And I will say Jalen Hurts, I thought was going to be under-owned compared to what he should have been based on our projections. We had Josh Allen, who was crazy popular. And when he had a complete nuke ceiling game, I thought it was almost impossible not to play Jalen Hurts in the afternoon game. For me in NFL, I want to be given as much information as possible. And this week especially, there's going to be so many lineups I have with just like 2, 3, 4 players in play and roster spots. And if they fail, how am I going to get on to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in some spots? Like for me, it's going to have to come down to really knowing that my 2, 3, or 4 players in those lineups have smashed. And then I can kind of play the chalk accordingly. So I get what you're saying, where, you won't know who to pivot to, but I'm not necessarily talking about pivoting off of the quarterbacks. I'm trying to figure out what is the best course of action and how do my lineups look after the morning group of games.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just you have quarterbacks, particularly with Josh Allen and Mahomes, they're in the same price range. So it's going to be a little more difficult to tell, like, it's easy to see if someone has Cooper Kupp left because his salary is so unique. You kind of just know the permutations. But with some of these late games, you've got those type of guys. Stafford's a little cheaper. You're not going to play PJ Walker, Kyler, Geno. I mean, there are options. It's an interesting kind of situation. And then you've got, Lamar sandwiched between Allen and Mahomes from the first wave of games. So you got all the big names available for QB this week.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And you start QB on this show. So let's do exactly that. Let's just get right to it. You've got 3 guys sitting in the 8K range. We've got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, who would kind of be your pivot du jour, going up against the 4-1 New York Giants, Ben. 4-1. And Patrick Mahomes, of course, in that same Buffalo KC game. Pretty wild to think that Lamar Jackson is a drastic pivot off of that game environment you're looking at for Buffalo KC, but such is life. 1 is the Giants defense for real, and 2, do you see yourself playing some Lamar Jackson as opposed to just game stacking up Buffalo, Kansas City in a million permutations?
Yeah, definitely. I think that Lamar certainly taps into a ceiling on the ground that no one else can really eclipse. Maybe Jalen Hurts at times, but 1, if he goes crazy, certainly you're going to want him, but it also, QB is the ultimate opportunity cost because you can only play 1. So even if Mahomes and Josh Allen and that game goes over, there is always a chance that Lamar simply outscores them. So I absolutely am very comfortable playing him. Don't worry about the Giants defense. It's cool to see them play well. I don't think they're any good. I just don't. They're 4.5-point home dogs in this spot. I guess the tricky part of this is that like Lamar presents a lot of challenges with his stacks where the other ones build themselves. How much ownership do you think is going to be allocated between these first three heavy hitters?
Oh, I mean, we're kind of grasping at straws. I assume Allen and Mahomes just end up crazy popular at the top end. Like there's no way around it. We don't run ownership until Wednesdays, really. That's when you do the ownership first look show. I got to think Lamar Jackson's going to be sub 8%, sub 7%. And he ends up being very intriguing for tournaments. And one of the nice things about Lamar Jackson is that you get a position like tight end where there's two guys at the top end who have the massive ceilings and then everybody else on this kind of a slate. And I think it's just so clear cut that if Lamar Jackson in the year of our Lord 2022 has a ceiling game, you're playing him with Andrews. And that's basically having a QB in a tight end spot where it's just the one position. Like I'm assuming I might get to some Kelsey Andrews type lineups this week, whereas I don't think that that's normally that all that viable. Maybe it's less viable considering they're both over 7K now, but Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews is the most automatic stack that there has ever been and that there ever will be. And so I don't have to overthink it.
It's just, I mean, this is a week and we'll see. This happens all the time on the show. We talk about the positions and it seems like it's going to be impossible to build. People, they get hurt. They don't practice Q tags. We're going to need some value. There's no doubt that we're going to need value because if you're paying up at quarterback and tight end, two positions that are a little easier to maybe have methodical pricing, I don't know how you're going to be able to do it. I mean, punting defense can only take you so far. And this is a week I do find myself pretty eager to pay up at quarterback.
Why? I don't really find defense. I mean, honestly, the cheapest defense that I'm really all that interested in is probably the Bills at 2,700 going up against Kansas City. The defense, as far as a punt there, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. You don't get the freebie Cowboys that I want to throw up even thinking about that from last week. Ugh.
When you look at quarterback, though, obviously, like I said, we've got the big names. I'm going to look at some of course, the tools at Stokastic to see how, the top stack tool should be very telling with that game. I mean, Stafford against Carolina, 10-point favorites. Rodgers back in Lambeau. You got your boy Kirk Cousins against Miami. Geno out, at home against Arizona. There are names as we go down. Where are you going if you try to save some salary and maybe go to not an under-owned stack, but a lesser, team total type stack?
I mean, we got to look at Arizona, Seattle. I mean, this Kyler Murray to Marquise Brown thing is becoming a little bit automatic. The guy has over a 25% target share. He's had double-digit targets in 4 straight games coming off of that Kansas City week 1, which got a little bit out of hand, and they needed to make some adjustments there. But even against Philadelphia, a very good defense where we've seen them shut down Justin Jefferson. We've seen them be very effective against a lot of really good wide receiver ones. You still saw over 20 fantasy points for Marquise Brown. He's starting to emerge as just like the guy. There's obviously a rapport there. Did they play together at Oklahoma? I'm assuming they did. They didn't? Interesting.
No, who?
Marquise Brown and Kyler Murray. I don't know if they did or not.
I think they probably connect. It's so hard to remember exactly when those cutoffs are. I mean, you have everyone we're talking about from Andrews to, Baker. All these guys are Oklahoma guys. I think that they probably did, though. I could be wrong.
Well, you only got 1 year of Kyler Murray.
That's what I'm saying.
That's where it's hard
window.
To know.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield was there, and must be nice to be Oklahoma at times, except for this year, right?
They're very, very bad.
They're very, very bad at the football. Follow Ben Rasa and Matt Gajewski for all your college football stuff because they're very good at it. I just basically
look at that. Chat knows
what.
Yeah, definitely same team. And yes, CD Lamb. I remember those teams, and I remember that was when New York you could play college DFS. Those were the days. Easy stacks, good times. Anyway,
I think Kyler Murray going up against Seattle defense on the road, 51 total. If I have dead lineups, I know I'm going to be pivoting to that game because it's going to be less popular than Buffalo, Kansas City because the name recognition of Buffalo, Kansas City alone. But I don't find there to be that much off the top of going to a Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown stack going up against Seattle's defense that is just leading to shootouts more than you would expect. I mean, New Orleans, they couldn't shut down Taysom Hill on the ground whatsoever. We'll get to the running back position with Eno Benjamin, but Arizona is just going to be a team that I'm going to have a lot of interest in, I think, coming into the week. We'll have to see how each one of these individual skill players go nuts, but Duke loves it too. So who's your favorite pivot off those top end guys?
I mean, I think the obvious pivot, and you just, illustrated it. You've got Geno, you've got Kyle. That's a great game. People are going to target it. You're not going to be sneaky by any sense in going to a 51-point total game that's inside a field goal. So I get it. If we're going against, we're throwing out those, we got to see what's up in Miami. I don't know who the quarterback will be. Whoever that is could be playable for sure. Not Skylar Thompson, let's be clear. But if it's Bridgewater, I could go there. I'm interested to see like Daniel Jones, Pickett, if that range, if anyone emerges, Zach Wilson, most of these guys to me are on the outside looking in. And that again is partly of the reason I have a feeling I'm going to get primarily top end quarterbacks.
I'm making up words. You can't find words. We're doing great here. It's fantastic. I don't look. How many pass attempts did Kenny Pickett have last week?
38.
52.
That's a lot of passes.
They're going to be dogs to Tampa Bay here. Tampa Bay, a very noted pass funnel over the course of the last two and a half seasons. A little bit less so this year, but it's still a spot where I find Kenny Pickett to weirdly be the more intriguing guy to get to. Deontay Johnson, we've seen his price come down here. He was upper sixes, 6,100 last week, now down to 5,700. Pickens has really emerged as the only guy that you probably ended up wanting to run it back with, but 8 targets now back-to-back weeks with over a half a football of Kenny Pickett in the game previous. I think Pittsburgh getting to some of them against Tampa Bay. I think Tom Brady's going to end up being decently popular against 6,300. Not anything like we saw last week at a flat 6K against Atlanta, but I think Kenny Pickett ends up being kind of the punt. I wrote him down as the primary guy that I think is going to get pretty interesting for me.
Yeah, and it's partly by default. Like I said, I'm not in love with the options around him, but and Brady threw the ball 52 times as well. So that's a game both teams, for different reasons, I think are going to want or have to throw. And you could get some production there. I mean, the pushback, and it's not illegitimate, is like, well, how can you target a guy in Pickett with a team that really can't produce points? And, you're not getting, and that's true, but they didn't score last week and he still was fine. So maybe, you're almost saying, okay, if he throws a couple touchdowns, I mean, those are almost bonuses. He can move a little bit, and the volume, it seems even in a game where they hang, 40 pass attempts is almost the floor for a guy like Pickett in this spot.
Yeah, 16. He outproduced his double rushing touchdown game, the previous one against the Jets. Obviously, it was just over a half of football that we saw Kenny Pickett, or exactly a half of football that we saw of Kenny Pickett there. 52 pass attempts is going to get a lot of cheap quarterbacks to the house there. 16 fantasy points still. You find a touchdown or two in the middle of that, you're probably bringing a cheap wide receiver along for the run too. So Kenny Pickett, I'm with you. I think he kind of stands out. But Geno Smith, what if I told you Geno Smith was leading the NFL in QBR? Because he is.
Yeah, it's been quite a resurgence. He's looked great. Seattle's a mess. Don't like a lot about this team. I will say, he's played he's held himself well, even against some tougher defenses, but it is a stark split from what I can see. I mean, he played Denver, 195 yards passing. He went into San Francisco. They scored 7 points, 197 yards passing. Played Atlanta and Detroit, 325 yards passing and 320 yards passing. So he's beat up on some garbage defenses, but Arizona is coming to town. They're not exactly a juggernaut. 5,700. He's got some mobility, especially in recent weeks. It's hard to push back on it. It's a great access to a high total game. You're not going to be alone, though. People are going to go to that stack.
I think the last guy that is cheap that I really have interest in, the top three, we're going to be playing a lot of them. Kyler Murray as well. So the top four guys, anybody over 7K. What about Joe Burrow here? 6,700. We got to expect them to be a little bit more functional as an offense eventually. And if T. Higgins is in any way going to be limited or out, your stack becomes a little bit easier to kind of put together. You've saw Hayden Hurst kind of emerge last week, 3,300. So at least maybe he gives you some salary relief to get up at some other places in your lineup. And if Kelsey and Andrews don't smash, you're in a good spot. But him and Jamar Chase have not had that game, like that game that we've been looking for so far. I don't think that it's going to be all that prohibitive that it could happen against anybody. I mean, they had a great week one against Pitt, at least Jamar Chase did. But since then, he's just too dynamic of a wide receiver. He's now sub 8K. So give it a little bit of a salary disparity from now until, or between now and 2021. I know New Orleans in a dome with that defense is not always the best situation, but they're favorites, and they're going up against a New Orleans side where you might get a cheap run back if you get no Chris Olave. Just by default, you might get Jarvis Landry at 4,300 or Marquez Callaway at 3,900. How do you feel about Joe Burrow finally putting it together on the road?
I'm not opposed to it. It would have to probably be because there's a massive ownership discrepancy amongst the stacks. It's not my favorite situation. They are indoors. That helps. Don't love the matchup. Competitive game though. And if you want to be different, there's not that many access points. Like there's a bunch of games, New England and Cleveland, Jacksonville and the Colts, the Niners and the Falcons. I'm going to have a really hard time stacking those games. Like I might get a player here or there, but most of these games I'm not going to look to. So where does my stack come from? It's the games we've really highlighted. And this one does need to be included on that list.
Fidel Delgado. So we're just going to acknowledge Josh Allen and Mahomes are going to pull major ownership. Yeah, we did that right from the get-go. They're going to be crazy popular.
And that's where Lamar, by default, I'm not going to say he's going to be sneaky because he's going to get his too. But if he gets to a ceiling, you're going to be able to, this is going to be weird. You're going to have lineups that are like stacks of a game without the quarter. Like people will do that. You're going to have stacks of Kansas City and Buffalo and then not the quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to happen by default. We saw the Millie Maker winner last week, 3 Tampa Bay pieces without Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's just strange.
Not a fan?
That doesn't make sense. No, not a fan. I'm a fan if it's a running quarterback, like with Brady.
Josh Allen.
No, I know. I more mean like for those guys to succeed, whatever. That guy, you think he cares what I think? He's probably shopping for expensive gifts. Ownership doesn't matter if they're putting up 40 plus. Isn't that the truth? That's why you want to have access to some of these guys. But at the same time, Lamar his ceiling is just as high as anyone who takes the field any week.
I missed you.
Yeah. Usually we're talking about egregious golfers. Instead, we got egregious game stacks.
Normal social protocol is when you say you miss somebody, you say, I missed you too. But you went to no, we normally are having unfun times and life sucks.
Not true. That's fake news.
Tyler agrees. Producer Tyler agrees with me. I'm getting no love.
I thought he said he missed you too. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
I could be hearing stuff, but
no, I said that.
Maybe we can get a cardboard cutout of Laffy right here the rest of the time. We could sync my mic so that you could be doing a show with your boy as opposed to with me. And then you could be happier. Just saying.
I'll be happy if I hit some of these soccer bets.
All right. What do we got on tap for today? Did you post anything in the premium Discord?
I have not yet. I got to do the show, man. I've been focused here. We might go a little Dynamo Zagreb. Just a typical Tuesday. Who doesn't bet Zagreb on a Tuesday? Come on now. Anyway,
Zagreb Tuesday. It just has a nice ring to it.
It is certainly a tradition unlike any other.
All right. Well, go ahead.
No, that's all. I was going to say, I don't have anything else for quarterbacks. I don't see going any deeper.
Jimmy Garoppolo against Atlanta in a dome. That's the only other thing that I could remotely stomach, but I don't want to.
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay, good talk. Glad we had it. Geno Smith, good Lord, just coming from the rafters. That'll be a fun one too. But hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. I just talked about it a second ago. I'll kind of jumpstart this too for you guys. Ben, myself, a lot of experts posting in the premium Discord day in, day out. I'm posting an MLB card throughout all of the playoffs. If you guys want to get access to those and you want to be betting some Zigrev, what was it again? Dynamo. I know it's Dynamo Zigrev. Is that what it is?
Zagreb.
There we go.
Same.
I tried.
Okay.
Either way, if you want to find these bets that Ben Rasa is posting and definite winners on this lovely Tuesday morning, head to stokastic.com/ Lindy. You could do whatever you wanted to in any capacity, but find that premium Discord, sign up over at Stokastic, and then BR Insider or EL Insider. Sign up using those promo codes. That would be Ben or myself, and you will get access to that Discord. Come join, come sweat, come hang out. It's a blast. It's a party. And, like yesterday when Marcus Valdes-Scantling hit the over on everything, receptions and receiving yards, we can party with our pants off. It's beautiful stuff. So come hang out. Well, in an appropriate fashion, of course, but it's there on the screen. Look at that. Ben and myself, the first two analysts at the top. Whew.
One thing you left out, maybe the most important thing, the first week is 100% free. So come check it out regardless. Even if you don't like it, just leave. No big deal. Just hang out for the week. Give it a shot. And if you say this sucks, then you know that it's not for you. No problem. I have a feeling you're going to want to stick around. Great group in there. It's a lot of fun.
Yep. Ben at the top, me below him, because again, this is a pecking order, and I trust Ben more than I trust myself. That's for sure.
So do I. Wow. No. Are you kidding me? Truth be told, I've been telling a lot of your baseball, and it's been going really, really well, because when I mess around with baseball, I do dabble. Not my favorite sport to bet. I would rather rely on the experts.
Dodgers -1.5.
That was my sharp bet of the day today. It's on the video.
Really?
Yes.
Oh. Well, I came out with a video 2 days ago about it.
Yeah. Clevenger's going to have a tough scene today.
Sure is. It's going to be a bloodbath here in old LA. So -1.5 for that. And if you're, I'll let you guys get behind the paywall for the rest of it there. But definitely be checking that out. But Dodgers -1.5, a freebie from Ben, a freebie from myself. Great. We're on the same team there. That's great. Let's go to the running back position. It gets pretty interesting because Christian McCaffrey is free. He is free of the Matt rule that has ruled him. We know offensively the amount of targets and volume that he's had the last couple of weeks. Thank God. It's nice that he's been getting to it. Again, he had 20 at halftime. He only put up like 3.4. He became far less involved in that second half. I don't really know what to make of it. San Francisco's pass rush is very, very good. This Rams defense, pretty good itself too. But I think Christian McCaffrey at 8,300, this is a different price than we have been paying for him for years. This is his low point for 2 seasons. Hi, Christian McCaffrey. How are you? Is he somebody that you might find yourself paying up for this week?
I mean, you always have to look to these guys, and it's very encouraging to see the targets where they are. They're a 10-point dog. Probably going to have to get there on volume, not efficiency against the Rams. My biggest problem is I really try to approach this realistically with the slate. And I don't see myself, unless I'm, Kenny Pickett stack, Christian McCaffrey gets a big boost for obvious reasons. But, if you're going to Allen and Mahomes stacks, the furthest thing from your mind is going to be Christian McCaffrey. So I want to see where the ownership comes in. He is pretty cheap in the sense of where he normally is, and he's sandwiched with a bunch of the other elite backs. What do you think, though? I want to ask you about that matchup. There are some positives, but there's also some big negatives in the sense that they could just get absolutely throttled and really not score.
I think the other thing that's kind of concerning to me, do they just put it's 1-4? If Christian McCaffrey is on the trade block, like if what you said is actually true, do you want him out there playing 75-80% of snaps? I sure effing don't.
That's a fair point too. I mean, it's very difficult to know. I mean, Carolina's season was lost before they even started, but he's the type of guy, if he's going to get these type of targets, even in games that go horrible for Carolina, he can exist. I mean, 9 and 12 targets over the last 2 weeks. He's looking at 20 plus touches in the majority of these weeks. I like it from a volume standpoint. I like him more than Nick Chubb. Taylor is sporting the Q tag, and certainly he can return to action, but how effective will he be? I wonder how popular McCaffrey will be given the landscape of this slate.
Yeah, that's what it's been. He was 2% in the Millie last week. I had 20 something percent of him. I was willing to just say, all right, that second half that we saw, maybe they finally saw the recipe, which is put Christian McCaffrey, let him get out of the backfield to the middle of the field because he's better at catching footballs than anybody else on that football team. But didn't really seem that way, even though we got targeted a lot. They weren't high quality targets. They were behind the line of scrimmage. It was, short ADOT stuff, 50 yards total of receptions and 12 targets. You want to expect a little bit more out of him, like what we saw in that final drive going up against Arizona in week 4. But Nick Chubb is insanely good at running footballs, maybe the most efficient runner because he's only seen over 55% of the snaps once at the running back position. You're in a pretty strict timeshare with Kareem Hunt, and yet when he's on the field, he is running it down people's throats. He's 8,100 here, I think, or 8,200 against a New England defense as a guy who isn't a pass catcher. I don't expect him to be all that popular when we get ownership tomorrow. I think that makes him a little bit of it intriguing to me. Maybe the people just keep jamming him because it's been going well, but this is definitely the one matchup out of everything that we've seen this season that I'm the most apprehensive to roster him. But maybe you get him at low ownership. How do you feel about Chubb for week 6?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest knock, and we talked about this for a while with Derrick Henry, is as his price starts to really increase, the margins are so incredibly thin for a guy that's not going to give you much, if anything, in the pass catching role. Like, he has to score. He has to get the 100-yard bonus. And even if he does that, he could return a moderate 20, 23, like not a bad output, but nothing that's tournament winning. And that's really my biggest concern with him is 115 yards and a touchdown enough? And that's a big ask. I mean, when you look at the prop going to oddchopper.com, it's not like for obvious reasons, it's not like his prop is 140 yards. I mean, nobody's is. So I have to say that he's a little premium for me. He's always a great player. But I think that you have to be careful as his price continues to rise, just given his limitations in the passing game.
Yeah, those expensive guys are definitely tournament plays. I can't imagine that we're going to be getting to anybody in any capacity for cash that are those top two. But this 6 and 7K range is just loaded. Saquon Barkley, we know that he has some passing game prowess, which is good. Baltimore dead last in terms of passing yardage given up on the season, 290.2 per game. A little bit better against the rush at just 108 yards per game, but it's Saquon Barkley, and that workload is so secure against Baltimore. You get Leonard Fournette. Nice to see his snaps just go right back to where they were. 11 targets, complete nuke of the slate, 36 fantasy points in week 5. You get Kamara there at 6,700. Good to see him back involved. Andy Dalton, more than happy to dump it off, and sometimes 6 targets for him for 91. Some more big plays for Kamara to be justifiable there. 6,700 though, sitting at the same price range. And then of course, Ramondre Stevenson at 6K. No Damian Harris means all the Ramondre Stevenson against a Cleveland defense that did not look all that imposing compared to what we would expect. They have a great pass rush, but not so serviceable in stopping the run from time to time. How do you feel about the 6 and 7K running backs? Because I love it.
Yeah, this is definitely a target-rich environment with Stevenson, with Kamara. These guys, they can do a lot. The role is in, Taysom Hill notwithstanding, Kamara still has ample opportunities on that offense. You mentioned Stevenson has the backfield to himself. Cleveland is a complete mess. 5.3 yards allowed per rush attempt, 30th in the league. Cleveland loses games. Cleveland's a Ponzi scheme. That's an evergreen statement. Just that entire team is a disaster. They lose. Just what a waste of a franchise on multiple fronts. But just how they blew that game, and that wasn't even close to their worst loss on the season, considering what they did against the Jets. I can't push back on much, if at all, of any of these guys. What do you make of, I do want to ask you about Fournette, who was huge, amazing performance, really important to the slate last week, 11 targets. Wow. that's serious work. If he continues to do that, it's hard not to be interested in any matchup.
Yeah, and he did it on playing just 62% of the snaps, which I thought was pretty wild. So I think I got a little bit lucky last week. He was my highest owned running back. I talked about how in week 4, they were down to Kansas City by 21, like instantly. And it was really hard for me to mine out anything with just 3 rushing attempts for Leonard Fournette. Obviously, the field didn't feel any sort of apprehension to roster him either. He ended up very, very popular. 11 targets, 62% of the offensive snaps, though. You are seeing Rachaad White starting to get involved in this offense. And that's for me the major thing about Leonard Fournette. I think he's still very much in play against a Pittsburgh defense. Then in the same way you talk about Cleveland, this is not your grandparents' Pittsburgh Steelers defense. This is no steel curtain. It's more of like a shower rod. So
yes.
I think we've got to find our ways to still get a little bit of Leonard Fournette, but I'm far more apprehensive about just locking him up in bulk. We saw a price hike on him. He's on the road. A couple of things that are going against him in a way that I think I probably got a little bit luckier than I want to admit last week.
I mean, it's just a guy that's going to really benefit if they pepper him with targets to that rate. I hear what you're saying. I totally get it. But there are a lot
devil's advocate of myself.
No. And that's what we need to do, because some of these, you can only play a couple guys. The salary is extremely important. I don't really see the need to get to some of the, Mixon, you want to roll the dice in tournaments. Edwards-Helaire, I have no interest in. He was terrible last night. They should have went to Pacheco. That was annoying on multiple fronts.
McKinnon was awesome, though.
He was awesome. Edwards-Helaire could do nothing on the ground, though. Do you
think though that CEH could end up like 2 or 3% because primetime games, people react to them in a very, very heavy fashion. Like, I don't think Cowboys defense gets to be 25, 30% last week. I mean, they were 35% in like the $33 and some stuff like that. I don't think they get there unless they show their stuff off on a primetime game the week before.
I agree with that to some extent. He'll probably garner some ownership by default because of his environment.
Yeah.
And I think that will make it, I hope he does, because that's an easy write-off for me.
He's just not very good.
No, I mean, listen, he can catch the ball. He's part of a dynamic offense. He's got, they ride the hot hand to the extreme. Like I said, Pacheco was starting to get work, and he had 1 carry last night on a whim. So it's very difficult.
He ends up getting a lot of positive game script work, and then he's uninvolved in close games for Kansas City. I think it's hard to imagine Pacheco's a guy. For me, Jerick McKinnon, I'm very interested to see where his ownership ends up. He's like the most contrarian I would get at the running back position. But then you see, like, what's the workload for him compared to a Ramondre Stevenson? It's going to be so hard to get away from the chalk when you see 25 carries in the absence of Damian Harris for Ramondre Stevenson. They're just going to run him into the ground. And as you said, over 5 yards per carry for Cleveland defense this season. That's going to be tough. What do you think about my boy Breece Hall against a tough Green Bay defense? But he's got the backfield. And if he would have gotten those 2 1-yard carries that Michael Carter got for whatever freaking reason.
I hear that.
Oh my God. Breece Hall is just my absolute baby. I love him more than anything. Damn you, Alan Lazard. You're dead to me. How dare you wear a Green Bay uniform? I know you didn't have a choice about that, but Breece Hall kind of leads off the upper 5Ks for me. I don't think this is a very intriguing upper 5K spot. You get to Kenneth Walker III at 5,400. Major talking point of this slate. Going to be crazy popular, but anything that stands out to you upper 5s other than Breece Hall?
Yeah, Mostert. This is a guy, just for Laffy. He's not here to talk about his boy. He was all over him last week, and 18 carries, $113 on the ground, and a touchdown, 3 targets as well. Electric runner against Minnesota's defense, which they've made some strides at stopping the run. I still don't think it's the strongest front. So I don't mind that. And you mentioned, the only 2 Iowa State players that I can think of that are in the league, in Lazard and your boy there in Breece Hall. I have no problem with Breece Hall. He's going to play a prominent role more often than not. The Jets are moving the ball. Tough spot in Lambeau, but you can make it work here. Kenneth Walker, obviously. Now it starts to really drop off.
Yeah. Come on. Breece Hall. Brock Purdy. He played a snap last week. He
was in the league.
He is. San Francisco. He's the backup right now. They love him. Shanahan loves Brock Purdy.
Seneca Wallace.
Seneca Wallace, there you go. Those are good days. I wasn't there at school yet, but yes, those were good days.
That was the biggest bet of my childhood when I was real little. When they played Nebraska, it was the first time Iowa State was good in years, and they rolled them. I'll never forget that. How old were you? I mean, I don't know. I'll have to look it up, but I don't know, honestly. But I just remember that's one of my most vivid childhood memories. Is I had that game circled. I've never been so excited. And then I lost my Iowa State sweatshirt in MGM in Vegas, and I was devastated.
I might have to send you another one.
It was sweet. It had the little cyclone guy. How am I going to find that? You can talk about.
Do you want like an old school Iowa State? Like, do you want the original colors? Because like the original red and yellow is pretty sick. Like this golden
cool.
Crimson thing is just not it for me.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to find that while we're on this show, because I'm sure people are just dying to know about these very important things.
I want to know. They care about you. Here's the thing you don't understand, Benjamin.
Don't.
People care about you on these shows. People do not. We don't have 350 people here tuning in. They could probably go down the DraftKings list themselves. They are here to hear your expert opinions, and they care about you as a person.
Oh, I got it. Here we go. Seneca Wallace accounted for 270 total yards and 3 touchdowns as number 19 Iowa State converted 5 Husker turnovers into 17 points, and they down number 20 Nebraska 36-14 in Ames. When was that? It was, I got it right here, September 28th, 2002. There you go.
You were a wee lad.
Yeah, I was little. I mean, not that little, but yeah, I was 12.
Am I older than you? I'm older than you.
Yeah.
I'm older than you.
There you go. That's all I got. Good job, Seneca Wallace.
Tyler Zander was 4 years old. He's just wanting to let it be known for the people. You're a dick. Travis Etienne ended up quite involved again last week. He's at a flat 5K. And again, Kenneth Walker III, he's going to be popular. He probably should be popular. I don't know what the involvement of a DJ Dallas is going to be in that passing game. I don't know what Tony Jones is going to do. I know he got signed to the team. So that's just something to keep an eye out for if he gets activated to the active roster. Can't imagine he's going to be a prominent part, but they used draft capital on other running backs before. It hasn't meant anything in the past. So I want to think Kenneth Walker III is good chalk, but we'll have to revisit that later into the week. Deion Jackson, if there's going to be no Jonathan Taylor for another week, he ended up being the lone back. Showed some stuff against Denver, shown a little bit of playability there. I know Philip Lindsay's still going to be a feature part of that, but it was primarily Deion Jackson, Travis Etienne 5K, and then, of course, the chalk of all chalk, Eno Benjamin season is here, which is probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever said. Upper 4s, lower 5s, my friend, round out the running back position for us.
Yeah, I mean, you did a good job of it. When you get below, certainly Kenneth Walker, who's a lightning rod for ownership here, I think it's few and far between reasonable targets. It's going to be situational. Maybe some things pop up. You know, I saw chat mention Tyler Algier. You mentioned ETN. These guys, I'm going to need a reason to have to go there before I really make that move. Maybe it's opportunity cost. Maybe there's some change in personnel. I don't see a lot. You mentioned Eno Benjamin. Again, we got to see what's up with Connor. These are the situations to monitor. But on a Tuesday, I'd be lying. Like McKinnon, no. I don't see the need to force some of these guys into my lineups.
I think the main way you would do it is Josh Allen, Diggs, run back Kelsey. That's not cheap. You're probably going to have to pay down at some running back spots.
That's an understatement.
So I'm just saying, if you put in, let me just do that while we're talking about it. I'm going to play Josh Allen. I'm going to play Stephon Diggs, and I'm going to play Travis Kelce. I have 42.66 per player remaining. Now, you can find some kind of a defense punt. And as I said, like Buffalo defense at 2,700 isn't the most egregious thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I think 3K, let's just go to the 3K defense. There's another guy that once upon a time when he does his game breakdowns, he just goes to the 3K defense and clicks on it. So there you go. You have 45.20 per player. Now, Wide receiver, there's a couple of punts. You get the Shakir in that same game environment. You get Marquez Callaway for a second straight week where I think there's some viability going there. Maybe he can actually produce this time around. And hey, if you're going to have no Chris Olave, it's like going to be a popular piece. But I think there's viability just if that game is going to go completely nuclear, 53.5 total. If it scores 60, 65 points and is the game you need, and you need Diggs, Kelsey to get there, I find getting to 5K running backs not the dumbest thing I've ever done.
No, it just again, you have to complete those first steps though. Like that's all I'm saying for sure.
Totally agreed. Just like we both agree, no house advantage. Week in, week out, the best place you can put your money and why? It's called overlay. It's absurd how much overlay we've been seeing week in, week out over at our friends at No House Advantage. They're literally giving money away to you just by you playing in these contests. We get you guys $50 first match deposit bonus using promo code Stokastic. Right now, they have the Thursday Night Football Showdown up. They have the Grand Slam going here for today if you want to play some baseball. 75 out of 240 people in that baseball contest. That's literally an hour from starting. I'm going to have to actually jump in that here. But Thursday Night Football, you have confidence slots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For Thursday night, I can't imagine there's anything about Washington at Chicago that is all that appealing other than playing DraftKings, FanDuel, and No House Advantage. So play using confidence spots. So you're going to pick either Carson Wentz over or under 250.5 passing yards, over or under passing touchdowns, over and under 0.5 interceptions. Lots of ways that you can piece together a card over at No House Advantage. We have free projections going for you guys right now. It's kind of a no-brainer because I can guarantee you this thing will not get over half full right now. None of these contests have been over half full on Sundays or Mondays or Thursdays for all of these primetime games. Take advantage of it now. And you deposit $50 in, you'll get another 50 using promo code Stokastic. You have $100 to put into play. That's 6 entries in that $15 that you can put to work for you. Still have 10 left over. You could put 2 of those in the $5 in the fastball for some of these MLB playoff contests. It is a great time to get over to No House Advantage right now. So use promo code Stokastic, get you that up to $50 first match deposit bonus, and sign up for some of these contests right now. To the wide receiver position we go. We got 20 minutes left in our program, and Cooper Kupp seems like he's a good option sometimes.
Yeah, he is someone though. I mean, every week I say the same thing. You know what? I got to make some room for Cooper Kupp. Then I start to build. And I'm like, well, I have $6,000 left, and he's 9,700. Oh, and that's just what makes it so tough. Not to mention, guys like Justin Jefferson and Diggs command your attention. You've already mentioned Chase in this show. My biggest positive with Cooper Kupp is who the hell is going to play him here? Like, he's got to be low owned by default. Is he not?
Yeah. But Cooper Kupp, it doesn't matter what that game environment is, because he's played in a lot of game environments over the last couple of years. 19 of his last 20 games, including the playoffs, he's gone over 94 yards reception, 94 receiving yards. He has had double-digit targets in all but 2 games in his last 20.
I mean, it's
that covers always a lot of like game environments. So yeah, it's a low total game, but like it doesn't matter with him.
It's not a matter though. It goes beyond if he can produce or will produce. It goes, how much are you giving up by allocating that type of salary there? I mean, you're talking about 1/5 of the entire salary basically on one wide receiver who's not in a high total game.
Yeah.
I'll say this, and this is not breaking any news. If the Chiefs-Bills game goes over that total, Cooper Kupp's going to need like 7 touchdowns to get there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just about if he has a huge game. What happens if the high total games shoot out? You're not going to be able to get to those stacks with Cooper Kupp.
I think it's going to really depend on some of the injury news we have if there's no Chris Olave, Marquez Callaway, there's just a lot of cheapies. I would even say the Giants. I wrote down a couple of them. I guess I didn't talk about Daniel Jones earlier, but I'm not so intrigued with Daniel Jones at the quarterback spot, but we get like Richie James, Darius Slayton, welcome back to the program with his 7 targets last week. They are absent every single body. I'm going to be paying attention to Kadarius Toney injury news, Kenny Golladay injury news, Chris Olave injury news. You're going to get some cheapies at wide receiver. Maybe he's a luxury you can afford if all of this news breaks our way to get to some Cooper Kupp. But underneath him, Justin Jefferson, 1-for-1 pivot, lot cheaper, actually, $800 though at the current iteration. Last week, he beat him straight up without a touchdown. Didn't get in the box. Still exploded and had a massive game here. Stephon Diggs is going to be the chalk. We all know it. Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, I think, are just going to go completely left out on this kind of a slate. So I have a lot of interest in tournaments. Once again, paying up is kind of the contrarian thing to do at both the running back and wide receiver position these days. Even if they do have the massive ceilings, we haven't always had a ton of injury news break our way to get a ton of value. Last week, if you played a ton of Shakir, you did. But Stephon Diggs compared to Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp feels like you're going to be fighting a lot less ownership going to the other two.
I can't argue with that. Now, again, that's going to be the theme of this kind of slate to me is, do you attach your stars to your stack? Diggs is going to be attached most likely.
Yeah.
Or do you run cheaper stacks and have massive one-offs? Justin Jefferson, Kupp, Chubb, like guys that are going to have to isolate their points and their quarterbacks are not really bringing a ton to the table. Debo is going to be lost. Tyreek's got a Q tag. Hollywood's in a great game stack. The Tampa receivers will be there for sure. Metcalf stack, Gabe Davis stack, Higgins Q tag, Waddle, maybe no quarterback. I mean, I'm already in flat 6.
I mean, if Tyreek Hill's out, I'm still going to play Jalen Waddle.
Not if Skylar Thompson's throwing the ball. Or are you? I mean, that guy, I can't believe he's even in the league. No offense. I just didn't think that he had, he was a rusher primarily at Kansas State.
He was. And serviceable one at that. They've got another rushing quarterback now, don't they? It's another
Kansas State?
Yeah, Kansas State.
Yeah,
they're
Adrian
actually
Martinez.
good. Adrian Martinez, the Nebraska transfer.
That's true.
Wild. It's a wild world that we're living in. Marquise Brown, 7,200 is somebody that I've talked about quite a bit already on the program. How are you feeling about like the DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett stack, which for some godforsaken reason, we can't get a price hike on Tyler Lockett. We can get a price hike on everybody else, but identical 5,600. He only saw the 6 targets, but 2 touchdowns. He seems to just be a dude that is going to get owned on every single slate until he's 7K. Fingers crossed here eventually. But the Metcalf Lockett combination with Marquise Brown is not all that hard to put together if you're going to play Geno Smith on the other side.
No, not at all. I mean, that's, again, though, I'm consolidating all my receivers, and not that I don't do this on a typical slate, but more than ever this week, into 2 categories. Are you attached to Seattle, Arizona, Kansas City, or Buffalo? If you are, you're going one bucket, or are you not? And if you're not, you're probably more on a one-off. You might be part of the Steelers Tampa game, or you're the one-off, because the stackability of those games to me far exceeds the likelihood of one of these random quarterbacks getting there. The wide receivers can, but I don't plan to attach any of these quarterbacks that I have no interest in just to get the wide receivers.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that for sure. Drake London against San Francisco, not ideal in that mid 5K range. You're going to see Lockett absorb a lot of that ownership. Talked about Deontay Johnson. I do think Pittsburgh has some viability because Chris Godwin, 6,100. He's still pretty cheap relatively. You have a 7K Mike Evans, and Tampa Bay throws the ball a lot. There you go. It kind of makes some sense. The rest of the 5K range, we saw Jacoby Myers start to get involved, but Cleveland, not the best spot to try to really manufacture another massive upside game. We talked about how bad their rushing defense is. They're middle of the pack in terms of passing yards given up in the league this season, 14th. But 5K range, anything stand out to you here outside of Lockett?
I mean, certainly, again, the first guys to identify, I know it's a broken record, are guys in those games. Lockett, Deontay Johnson, half the look at the 5K range. Q tag, out, I mean, this is ridiculous. It's a minefield. If Higgins sits, do you think that someone like Tyler Boyd, I know he operates kind of in a different part of the field, maybe he sees a boost. You've got like Myers. I'm still not super keen on that situation. Everyone else is hurt. Juju maybe, but he's part of the super game. Not a lot here.
A flat 3K Mike Thomas. That'll be fun. Cincinnati. If you end up having Higgins sit, because again, nobody expected him to be on a snap count basically, or just didn't even play the second half. But Tyler Boyd isn't my favorite there. I guess the one thing to talk about is if you aren't going to be playing Diggs from the Buffalo KC game, Gabe Davis, I don't want to call it a luck box, but I mean, 3 catches for a zillion yards and 2 touchdowns. That was kind of an interesting way of getting it done. Yeah, 171 yards total. Juju Smith-Schuster is a corpse out there. 5,200. I'm going to just play my boy MVS to the moon again. 4,500. He's running great routes, high quality routes. He's on the field more than any wide receiver. I can tell you ahead of time. I can predict the future. Marcos Valdes-Scantling will be my highest owned wide receiver this week.
Interesting. I mean, he looked great last night. He always has a couple drops, but he's getting the work. He's out there between 70 and 80% of the snaps. And listen, with a guy like Gabe Davis, it's a luck box and it's something you can count on in the sense that he's going to have 2 games like that every year because he's just a high variance player. And that's just kind of like MVS in some ways. But going to Kansas City, I think, has actually flattened him a bit. He was more erratic in Green Bay. They're using him a little more underneath the gadget nature. And when you have 6 touchdown passes to go around, makes it a lot easier. What about Claypool at the same price?
Yeah. So Claypool and Pickens and all these guys from the Pittsburgh side, I think it's just an intriguing quarterback switch. I mean, Trubisky, I don't know. We kind of know who he is because we have a couple of years of sample size. We don't know what Kenny Pickett is. 5,200 for him. You can play him with any stack, and then you could pay up at every skill position spot. Like, that's for me what's so appealing. And we saw the 9 targets for Chase Claypool. We don't always know who the number one is going to be, who the guy he has the most rapport is, but seeing him and Pickens get far more involved was a beautiful thing. 13 targets for Buffalo. That's what happens when you throw the ball 52 times, is a lot of these target shares end up spiked. I think in terms of the Pittsburgh wide receivers, it goes Pickens, Claypool, Johnson. A lot of that is price considered, but yeah, Claypool, he's definitely going to be somebody in play for that pass funnel Tampa Bay defense for me too.
Yeah, and again, that makes a lot of sense. Totally can get on board there. We did get a super chat, friend of the show, Ryan Nelson.
Hey,
Iowa State facing 0-4 in the conference, and they're going to because Texas is going to roll them. While Nebraska's tied for first, God is great. Texas, very good. Nebraska, very bad, but their side of the Big Ten is so bad that they have a real chance to be sacrificed to Ohio State in a month or two, which is very, very interesting. Matt Campbell really should have took the bag. He could have been Matt Rule. He would have had the opportunity to get fired in the NFL if he would have just left.
So Marquez Callaway is 3,900 there at the top of the 3K range there at wide receiver. You get Darius Slayton there, 3,800, talked about him, but I think your chalk of all chalk coming off of last week in the 3K range is going to be Khalil Shakira, 3,700 for him. 5 targets, 75 yards, touchdown. Hi, how are you doing? Gonna have to wait on the McKenzie news, but assuming Mr. McKenzie writing the words to his sermon. That's Eleanor
What
Rigby.
Is that?
It's Eleanor Rigby from the Beatles.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
I tried. You didn't enjoy that. I'm not.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Talk about the 3K range. It's
I know.
fine.
I know.
Ryan
Jude.
Nelson ruined my life. He put me
Hey
on tilt.
Jude, that's what I got. If I had to name
Don't
Beatles
make it bad.
songs, and I was on a show for my life, and they said name a Beatles song, I would say Hey Jude, and then they'd say name another one, and then I would say
I'm dead.
If I close my eyes because I don't know, just make it quick because I don't know.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yeah, I missed that one. I was too busy
be.
betting. Let it be. I could have, if I had time to think, I could have got to
Get
that.
back.
You mentioned Marcus Callaway was popular last week. The Saints, that could be the game. You brought this up earlier. The Saints in Cincinnati, I think, is maybe the swing game. It's not a great stack. It's not a piss poor stack. It's kind of in the middle of it. And they are inside in the dome. Maybe a guy like Callaway, floor is 0 with a guy like that, but you're talking sub 4K. I'm going to give him a closer look as we get closer to Sunday.
It's not that the game just went over last week, Seattle, New Orleans. It went way over. Like, we're talking about a New Orleans defense that I think has some really good pieces. Obviously, Marshawn Lattimore at the cornerback position. They've got some decent enough edge rushing, but like on the whole, I just find Cincinnati to be like your wild card where if Jamar Chase and Burrow can get that game going and you get a cheapie to come along for the ride from New Orleans. Marquez Callaway. We're going to have to consider Traquan Smith. Like he's actually a thing this week. If you get Thomas, Olave, Landry all out, even Hardy, Deontay Hardy, making sure he had that turf toe injury. If he ends up out again, these are going to be Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, and Kirkwood are going to be your 3 starting wide receivers for New Orleans. And that is just horrific to say out loud. So definitely something to be paying attention to. Anything else from wide receiver for you?
No, I mean, it's very, as the news filters in, guy like Shakir is a perfect example from last week. We didn't talk about him in the first look show for obvious reasons. Like that became important mid show Sunday. So keep an eye on it. The more value that opens up, the easier and the more ownership McCaffrey, Kupp, Diggs, all these high-end guys will have. Stars and scrubs always gets a boost the more value that opens up.
Smash that like button for Ben and Lindquist in the morning. Excited to be talking a little NFL with my buddy over there. We're always talking PGA, and normally he's hosting. This is a new one for me for sure.
Role reversal.
Yeah, I love a little role play in the morning.
Yeah, why not? We spice it up on this show. That's what we do.
Yeah, a little bit of sex appeal for all the people over there.
Yeah, that's ratings bonanza over here.
We're going to finish it out with tight end defense like you guys always do, but hit that like button. Goes a long way for us. We've got upcoming shows, and check this out. BJ Strategy Show. Your boy Ben's coming right back, 1 p.m. Eastern time with him and Jeff Ulrich talking. What is it this week?
The Zoizo.
They're going out to Asia. Let's go.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Wednesday Night Lock, right?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
It's going to have to be a Wednesday Night Lock.
This is why they pay you the big bucks. Yes, this is true.
Look at me. I
would have missed
sometimes.
Not that I've been playing a ton of PGA in the swing season, but I would have had dummy lineups. I'm glad that you said that.
I think you would have noticed. I'm sure Jeff would have said something.
It's debatable.
Debatable. I'll take the credit, sure. NHL Strategy Show, though, yo. Guys, NHL is back today. It's Josh, Harris, Michael, Clifford. Looking forward to that one. You should be too. NHL is upon us. So check that out. That is at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Kind of weird. We could have just done a regular lock for it. We don't have any baseball live before lock or anything, but we have 1 hour till baseball. I'm going to be watching that. I'm sure you're going to be watching it. But first, the tight end position. There are 2 guys in Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. Ben, for your life, for your absolute life, in the same way that naming a Beatles song did not go well, I can give you one shot at redemption, and that is picking correctly between Kelce or Andrews. Who is your favorite go?
Andrews. Yeah, if I was on some type of show, if I had to rank those things, I would choose World Capitals to save my life. Then I'd choose these tight ends. Then I would choose Beatles songs. Mark Andrews over Kelce, though. Most of it is contingent on the ownership game. You mentioned this already, and both of them were in island games, but Kelce had 4 touchdowns last night. And I do think if people have the money, they're going to be more apt to click him over Andrews. And I get it. He's an amazing player, but so is Mark Andrews. If there's a discount in ownership, I will take that and run to the bank. I'm fine with it. Give me Andrews in that spot.
Mark Andrews is just a man. He's a man, baby.
He's a guy's a monster. Really, really impressive what he does there.
Well, then you get another game environment for like a Zach Ertz, George Kittle. Nice to see a pulse there for him. 6 targets, 5 catches there. Still nothing in terms of the box score, but nobody really a tight end. Dallas Goedert did okay. He's not on the main slate, so we don't have to think about it. But Higbee, once again, 4,600 for such a low total game. Him and Kupp are just the only 2 human beings who live. I'm not going to play Ben Skoranek. Allen Robinson is a corpse. So Tyler Higbee makes some sense at 4,600. And David Njoku going up against New England. Weird that he kind of falls into play here as well. 3 straight double-digit DraftKings games. I know that that's a little bit of box score watching, but he's getting rushing attempts randomly at times. He's getting swing passes at times. efficient targets, 88 yards receiving last week. I think he's in play at 4K as well. Anything stand out to you in the 4K range?
I mean, you mentioned these guys. Certainly the targets have to be there. I'm interested in the Higbee situation. Of course, you can go to him, but what happened? The Rams have been terrible, and I've been wrong about them. If they do cover this number, I wonder how much of the volume will be mitigated, and maybe they get something going. It doesn't look good in that backfield right now, but that's something I want to see. It's that time of the show. It's the same time every week when I say the same thing. And last week I was accidentally right. Evan Ingram, look at that. 10 targets last week against Houston. That's what I'm talking about. Responded with, no touchdowns as he always does, but 6 for 69, 12.9 if you want to go in the box score hunting. He's only 3,500 in the dome in Indy. That's fine for me.
Yeah, the only two guys on the cheap end here as well. Evan Ingram, fine there. Robert Tonyan, you do get Aaron Rodgers, and eventually he's going to fall into the touch, or he's going to fall in for a tutty again, and there it is. But if I'm not paying up for those two specific guys in Kelsey and Andrews, I'm probably going to avoid the Higbee chalk, people going for those targets. And I'm going to be going down to like Irv Smith, or if you continue to have Cameron Braid out with that concussion, Cade Otton was a thing. Like Cade Otton was involved, 7 targets and 6 catches, far more involved than I expected him to be as a rookie tight end. You never know how Tom Brady values these guys, but round out the tight end position here with the punts.
Yeah, you summed it up nicely. If Higgins is out, maybe a guy like Hayden Hurst, who had 7 targets against Baltimore, he's 3,300. He's had a touchdown in 2 straight games. These are the type of guys you're going to go to. Maybe there'll be a complete rando at the Stone Min that'll pop up. But for me, I'd rather find the extra $600, $700, $800 and get a known commodity.
Agreed. All right, let's round it out with defense. Favorite defense on the board, because I don't see anything sub 3K that I'm running to the window to cash. I think the Jaguars at 3K against Indianapolis that could have no Jonathan Taylor, no Naheem Hines, no semblance of anything. I don't think people understand how good Jacksonville defense has been this season, and they held Houston under 250 total yards of offense, only the 1 sack and no turnovers. So I think against Matt Ryan, we've seen him just under siege this entire season. I think they're probably my favorite tournament defense, mid 3K there, but anybody at defense to round out our show?
Yeah, if you have the money, I certainly will echo that. I think Minnesota, if Miami has no quarterback, but these are more premium defenses. If I was going to take a random punt defense, I think I would normally I'd say I'd go all the way to the bottom with Carolina, but they need it to be 2,000 flat. It's not enough in that situation. I think that you could go to someone like New Orleans, Seattle range, 2,800, go against a big time stack. That's always a very interesting tournament. If you don't target a game with a super high total, well, you might as well give consideration to the defense, because if it goes way under the total, could be defensive, turnovers, things like that, stalling in the red zone. It helps you even further the leverage you're getting by not stacking the game. So it's not the easiest week for defense. That I don't have a great answer down there.
Yeah, another week, another 49ers shot. Like, I think that they'll definitely be a defense you can play every single week. But Panthers 2,400, if the Rams are going to just continually allow everybody and their dad to just run through, I think just punting, that makes a lot of sense here too. But Ben, phenomenal job as always. Thanks for having me along to hang out for the ride, filling in for Lofty. He'll be back here next week, no doubt about it. But that was your first look show. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
No, as always, it was a pleasure. At Eric Lindquist, at JazzRaz DFS, it's on the screen. If you want to hang out with us, like I said, join the community. Come on in Inside the Ropes in Discord. That is where we spend most of our time. We're hanging, we're talking. It's just a really fun, low-key vibe in there. And you get some betting advice that never hurts. But thanks as always for tuning in. I love this show. Another low fun key. One in the books.
That's how everybody describes me. Low key, very chill. In fact,
yeah, monotone.
Let's get out of here. Thank you, Tyler Zander, so much for producing. Great job by everybody. Hit that like button, please, as we get out of here. Goes a long way for us here on the program. He's Ben Rasa. He didn't die today because he knows all the Beatles songs, and I'm Eric Lindquist. Oh. I don't know. I'm just done talking. We'll see you guys later.